You're welcome to today's class. Today we want to look at standard DSA terminologies, that is standard data structure and algorithm terminologies. So in the last class we did intro to DSA, that is intro to data structure and algorithm. So far we've seen how we've come from voltage, right, to data. So we are going further from data to information and then to knowledge, and then being able to make decisions from the information that we gather. So what I want to show you now are some of the terminologies we are going to be using in data structure and algorithm. So what we will do is to go from raw existence, which is the data, to what? To structured meaning, and then from structured meaning to what? Organized system. So you are going to see how you can form a living system in the machine. That is what we want to look at today. So without wasting much of your time, let's get right in. Now, I am going to look at the first terminology we will use, right, in this class is what? Data. Then the next one will be what? Data item. Then the next one will be what? Um, Group items. Then the next one will be elementary items. Then the next one, we'll look at entities or entity. Then the next one will be what? Attribute. Right? Then we'll look at entity set. Entity set. Then we'll look at fields. We'll look at record. So then we will look at file. Then 11, probably we'll just define database. So these are the terminologies we are going to be using, right? We'll look at these terminologies. So in this class, I'm just going to run through them for you to understand what they represent, so that when we are using them, it will be clear to you. So what is data, right? What is data? These are, so, raw potentials or raw existence, right? So when you say 25, this is data. When you say John, this is data, right? When you say 101101, this is data. Now, data in itself does not have any meaning. It just exists. So when you look at this 25, what does it mean? We don't know. What does John mean? We don't know. All right. That moves us to the next one, which is what? Data item. So what is data item? This is the single meaning existing within context, right? If I now say age equals to 25, name equals to what? John. Now we know what 25 is. Now we know what John is. That is what? Data item. So data item is the smallest meaningful piece in a context. Like they say, context matters. Because what it means in a particular context might not be the same in another context. So context really matters. Now, what is group items? So group items are data items that can be divided into sub-items. Example, full name, right? Where you have um, first name, right? And what? Last name. So this is what? Group items. That is data items that can be divided into what? Sub-items. Now, elementary items. These are data items that cannot be further divided. So these are the atoms of what? Of data. So example of this is what? Age, gender, right? Gender. You have male or female, right? You cannot divide it further. That is elementary items. Now, what is entity? Entity is what? Real world object. Example, student or employee, like me. I'm an employee of a company. So that is an entity, a real world object. So entity has what? Attribute. So what is attribute? Attribute are the properties of what? Entities. These are the things that describe an entity. For example, an employee. So an employee will have an employee ID, an employee will have a name, right? An employee will have department. So those are attributes. So when you have something like this, when you have something like this, right? So you can say ID, right? Name, age, then department, right? These are the attributes of what? Of an entity. Then we have entity set. These are class of entities, that is class of objects that have the same attribute. That is what you call entity set. Then you have field. So a field, right? When I do this, so in this one now, I'm having an ID, one, for example. And then here I have John, right? Inside this place. Then I have age, say 30, right? And then I have department, IT, right? So this is a field. This is a field. This is a field, right? A field is attribute storage. That is the storage for one single attribute of an entity. That is a field. So this is a field, this is a field, this is a field, right? Then record. What is record? Record is collection of fields that represent an entity. So this line, complete line, is what you call a record. And this complete line is representing an entity, which is this. So that is a record. So in database table, we are looking at columns and rows. So rows are what you call, refer to as what? Record. A representation of what? Entity. Then you have file. So if I have this first one, then I have another one too. Then I have info, right? Then I have 35, and then I have ERP. That is another department, right? So this combination is what you call file. So a file is a collection of what? Record. Record is a collection of field. Field is a storage of what? Of an attribute, right? So then you have database. So database is what? A collection of what? File. So that is basically what I want to show you this represent. Now, with this, we can now draw that our structure again. So we can draw that structure again by saying, we went from voltage, right, to binary. Then from there, we came to what? Data, right? Now, from this data, which is what you are looking at here, we go to what? Data item, right? From this data item, we move to what? From data item, we move to field. Now, I will explain to you. The reason why we are not putting the group items and the elementary, right, is because these are just types of data item. So we have this one here. Then we have to field. Then from field, we move to what? Record. Now you will see that there is no entity set, or there is no entity attribute and entity set. That is simply because a record is a representation of what? An entity. If we say entity is a real world object, now, for example, myself, I am an employee of a company, so I am an entity, a real world object. But how will you represent me in the system? So it has to be what? Record. And record is a collection of what? Fields, which is what? ID, name, age, department, all those things, right? That is what you have as record. Then from record, we move to what? File. And then from file, we move to what? Database, right? So this is the structure. Now, when we are going to look at processing from the last diagram that I gave to you, so that processing, we are looking at this part. This, you are looking at structure. This is structure, right? You know, I told you from data to structure, structure to what? Processing. So this field and record, we are looking at this structure. So this is what I want to show you in this class, standard DSA terminologies, what we are going to be using as we move into data structure and algorithm. So I need you to have this at the back of your mind, that this is how you create a living system in the machine, right? So if you have come with me this far and you have not subscribed to my channel or you are not following me on my Facebook page, please do so. And if you like this class, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. The next class, I'm going to show you how to map these terminologies to what? To the memory, which means we are coming down now to the physical layer. So we are going to have all of them living inside the memory. So where does data live? Where does field live? Where does record live? Right? So we are going to map it to the memory. That is what I will show you in the next class. So till we see in the next class. Bye-bye.